The guards fled in fear, yet the human soldier protected the alien queen with his body. Strange plants with translucent leaves swayed in the soft wind, and small streams of shimmering liquid ran through the canyons. From a distance, it looked calm, almost peaceful. But for those who knew its history, Zara 7 was a battlefield waiting to happen. Captain Daniel Harper stood on the edge of a ridge, scanning the horizon. His armor was scratched from the long journey through enemy territory, but his eyes were sharp and alert. Beside him, Lieutenant Clara Fields adjusted her helmet and checked the readings on her wrist console. "Something's off," Clara said. Her voice was quiet but tense. "The energy signatures are stronger than the scans showed." Daniel nodded. He had felt it too. The readings indicated a large presence, more than they had expected, and the signals were moving fast. Not like normal patrols, he thought. These were hunters. Their mission was clear: protect the alien queen of the Lyran species, Queen Solara. The Lyrans were tall, with silver-blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow softly. Their civilization had been attacked, their homeworld destroyed, and they had come to Earth for help. But not all humans agreed to intervene. Daniel and his unit had been sent on a covert mission to bring the queen safely to the human base. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. Daniel crouched low, signaling the others to follow. Clara whispered, "They're close, too close." A sudden noise echoed across the canyon. It was a harsh, metallic clang, followed by a low growl. From behind the rocks, strange alien creatures appeared. They were unlike anything Daniel had seen before. Their bodies were thick and armored, with multiple limbs ending in sharp claws. Their eyes burned red and their movements were quick and deliberate. "Contact!" Daniel shouted. His rifle rose smoothly to his shoulder. The others followed. Shots rang out, echoing through the canyons. Sparks flew as the creatures' thick hides deflected some of the bullets. Clara fired rapidly, trying to cover their retreat, but even as they fought, it became clear that the creatures were too many. One by one, the guards with Daniel began to fall back. Panic spread quickly. "Move, move!" shouted Sergeant Alex Monroe, one of the younger soldiers. His fear was clear. "We can't hold them." Daniel shook his head. "No, we stay. We protect the queen." They had trained for this, every scenario drilled into them, but nothing could prepare them for the sight of the creatures moving with such speed and precision. Daniel's mind raced. The queen's transport pod was only a few meters away, but reaching it meant crossing open ground. That was dangerous, too dangerous. Queen Solara appeared, her glowing figure shimmering in the sunlight. She raised her hand, a gesture that seemed calm but held an urgent warning. The creatures paused, as if sensing her presence, their red eyes narrowing. Daniel made his choice. He stepped forward, putting himself between the queen and the approaching creatures. His body felt heavy under the armor, but his determination was stronger. "You will not touch her," he muttered, mostly to himself. The first creature lunged, and Daniel fired without hesitation. His shots hit, but the creature barely faltered. Another came from the side, its claws slashing through the air. Daniel barely dodged, feeling the wind rip past him. He was surrounded, but he held his ground. "Captain, they're getting through," Clara shouted. She was firing too, but her position was exposed. She was too far to protect Daniel directly. Daniel grabbed her arm. "Cover the queen, I've got this." Clara hesitated, looking at him with wide eyes. "But you, go," he said firmly. "Now." Clara nodded reluctantly and ran toward the queen, helping her into the pod. Daniel turned back to face the creatures. They were faster, smarter than any enemy he had faced. But he did not flinch. Every move he made was calculated. Every shot he fired slowed their advance, buying precious seconds. The creatures hissed, their claws scraping against the rocks. Daniel's armor was dented and scorched, but he stood firm. He felt a surge of energy, a strange mix of fear and determination. He realized something important. This was not just about surviving. It was about proving that humans could stand where others would flee. that they could protect, even when odds were impossible. Behind him, the other guards had retreated, their fear overpowering their training. Some had even tripped over rocks in their haste, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon. Daniel did not judge them. He understood fear, but he also understood courage. He fired again, aiming for the glowing red eyes of the creatures. One fell, then another. The rest hesitated, unsure, as if sensing the determination in his heart. Daniel moved carefully, each step measured. He was exhausted, his arms burning, but he refused to give ground. Queen Solara watched from the pod, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and trust. Daniel noticed it and felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had always believed in protecting others, but this was something more. This was a bond that transcended species, a promise that he would not let the darkness win. Suddenly, one creature broke through the line. It was massive, larger than the others, with jagged spikes along its back. It roared, a sound that made the ground vibrate. Daniel knew he could not hold it off alone. He gritted his teeth, readying himself. "Come on," he muttered. "Try me." The creature lunged, faster than he expected. Daniel fired, but the shots only grazed its armor. He ducked and rolled, using the momentum to kick the creature back. It hissed in anger, circling him, looking for an opening. From the side, a strange blue light appeared. It was the queen. She raised her hands and a wave of energy shot toward the creatures, forcing them to stumble. Daniel felt a brief relief. "Thank you," he whispered under his breath, but the relief was short-lived. More creatures were coming, and he knew he could not hold them for long. His mind raced for a plan. He looked around, noticing the rocky cliffs above. Maybe he could use the terrain to his advantage. Maybe he could slow them down, buy more time. Daniel sprinted toward a narrow passage between the cliffs, luring the creatures after him. Their claws scratched the rocks, sparks flying as they tried to keep up. He led them into a tight area, where their size became a disadvantage. He fired relentlessly, feeling each shot burn through his ammo. Clara's voice came through his communicator. "Captain, Queen's pod is ready. Launching now." Daniel took a deep breath. He knew it was now or never. With one final glance at the Queen, he shouted, "Go, now." The pod lifted off smoothly, disappearing into the sky. Daniel watched, his chest heaving. The creatures roared, frustrated at losing their target. He had done it. He had protected the Queen. For a moment, everything was still. The wind blew through the canyon, carrying the distant sounds of the retreating creatures. Daniel lowered his weapon, exhaustion washing over him. He was alone now, but he felt a sense of pride. He had stood when others fled. He had protected what mattered most. And he knew this was only the beginning. The stars above Zera 7 sparkled, silent witnesses to his courage. Somewhere far away, the Queen looked back, feeling the bravery of the human soldier who had risked everything for her. Daniel Harper wiped the sweat from his brow. He knew more challenges were coming, but for now, he had done what no one else could. He had shown that humans, even alone, could stand against impossible odds. And as the sun set behind the jagged cliffs, he whispered to the empty canyon, "I'll protect her, no matter what." The pod carrying Queen Solara disappeared into the sky, leaving Daniel Harper alone on the rocky cliffs of Zera 7. The wind howled around him, carrying dust and small pebbles across the canyon. He could hear the faint scuttling of the creatures in the distance. They had been driven back, but he knew it was temporary. More would come. Daniel moved cautiously, scanning the area. His armor was battered, scratches marking every inch of it, and his muscles ached from the long fight. He could feel exhaustion settling into his bones, but he had no time to rest. Protecting the Queen had been only the first step. He needed to survive long enough for her to reach safety and for reinforcements to arrive. He checked his communicator. Static filled the device. "Clara," he called. "Can you hear me?" A faint voice answered, trembling but clear. "Daniel, I'm still with the pod. We're heading to the human relay station on the far side of the valley. You need to find cover." Daniel nodded, though she could not see him. "I will. Just get the queen safe. I'll hold them off." He began moving toward a narrow canyon passage that led deeper into the cliffs. The terrain was rough, but it offered some protection. Every step he took was careful, deliberate. He listened to the echoes of the creatures, noting the way they moved, learning their patterns. He had to be smart, not just strong. As he advanced, Daniel saw the remnants of his unit scattered across the rocky ground. Some of them had been caught in the chaos, and their armor lay broken and empty. It was a sobering sight, a reminder of how dangerous this mission truly was. He forced the grief aside. There was no time to mourn. Ahead, the canyon narrowed into a jagged corridor. Daniel ducked behind a large rock, breathing heavily. The creatures were coming, their red eyes glowing in the fading sunlight. One of them appeared first, sniffing the air as if it could sense him. Daniel held his breath, his finger on the trigger. The creature paused, then moved on, disappearing into the shadows. "Good," he whispered. "Not yet." He moved further into the canyon, using the rocks for cover. He noticed small caves along the walls, natural formations that could serve as hiding spots. He took note of them, planning for any moment when he might need to evade the creatures quickly. Suddenly, a sound echoed behind him, a loud crack. Daniel spun, just in time to see a massive creature leaping toward him. Its claws scraped against the rocks, leaving deep grooves. Daniel fired his rifle, hitting it squarely in the chest. The creature let out a shriek and fell, but he knew more were coming. He ran deeper into the canyon, using his knowledge of the terrain. His training as a soldier kicked in, guiding his movements. Every rock, every shadow, every turn could be used to his advantage. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time felt strange on Zera 7. The suns had shifted, casting long shadows across the rocky floor. Daniel was tired, his body screaming for rest, but he pressed on. He had to keep moving. He had to survive. At one point, he found a small alcove in the cliff wall. It was narrow but offered protection. He slipped inside and lowered himself, careful to stay out of sight. The creatures roamed nearby, their growls vibrating through the stone. Daniel listened, noting their movements, waiting for the right moment to move again. While hiding, his mind wandered to Queen Solara. She had trusted him with her life, and he could not let her down. He had faced fear before, but this was different. This was personal. He was not just fighting to survive. He was fighting to protect someone who had no choice but to trust him completely. A sudden movement caught his eye. From a crack in the rocks, he saw a small group of creatures approaching. They were careful, almost intelligent in their approach. Daniel took a deep breath. He had to act. He waited until they were directly below the alcove, then rolled a small rock down the slope. It struck one creature, causing it to stumble and alerting the others. Chaos erupted. The creatures screeched and lunged toward the noise, giving Daniel the chance to slip away. He moved quickly, navigating the jagged cliffs. Each step was dangerous, but he was skilled. He jumped across narrow gaps, climbed steep rocks, and avoided loose stones. The creatures followed, but their size made it difficult for them to maneuver. Daniel had chosen his path wisely. Eventually, he reached a small plateau overlooking the valley. From here, he could see the faint glow of the human relay station in the distance. Smoke rose from its antennas, and lights blinked in warning. Clara and the Queen must be there, he thought, but he also noticed something troubling. Shadows moved across the valley, more creatures, larger and faster than before. They were surrounding the station. Daniel realized that the Queen's safety was not guaranteed yet. He had to act fast. He radioed Clara again. "Clara, can you hear me?" "Yes, Daniel, we're here, but they're closing in. We need you." "I'm on my way," he said. "Hold her until I get there." Daniel began running down the rocky path toward the station. The wind tore at his armor, and the creatures' screams echoed in the valley. He felt a sharp pain in his leg. He had scraped it on a rock, but he ignored it. Nothing would stop him. As he ran, he remembered his training, every drill, every simulation. But this was not training. This was real. Every decision mattered. Every move could mean life or death. He reached a narrow bridge spanning a deep chasm. The bridge was unstable, but it was the only way forward. Daniel ran across, feeling the wood and metal groan under his weight. Behind him, the creatures hesitated, unsure if they should follow. One of them leaped, but Daniel fired, hitting it midair. It crashed into the canyon below, giving him a small victory. On the other side, the relay station rose like a fortress. Soldiers manned the walls, their weapons ready. Daniel sprinted toward the entrance, waving to get their attention. "Open the gates," he shouted. "The Queen is here." Inside, Clara was helping Queen Solara out of the pod. The Queen's eyes met Daniel's, and she gave a small nod of relief. He felt a surge of satisfaction. He had made it this far, but the relief was short-lived. Alarms blared and the walls shook as the creatures attacked. They were relentless, throwing themselves against the barriers, their claws scraping metal and stone. Daniel did not hesitate. He ran to the front, taking a defensive position. The soldiers followed his lead, forming a protective line around the Queen. Daniel's presence inspired them. They fought harder, more bravely. With him leading the charge, they managed to hold the creatures at bay. Daniel moved like a shadow, his rifle precise, his movements fluid. He dodged, rolled, and fired, taking down one creature after another. His body was tired, his arms shaking, but he did not stop. Every shot mattered. Every second counted. Queen Solara watched him, her glowing hands raised to cast protective energy whenever a creature broke through the line. Together they formed a strange but effective team, human and alien united against a common enemy. Hours passed. The sun set, casting long shadows across the valley. The creatures began to retreat, realizing they could not breach the station. Daniel lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. He had held the line. Clara approached him, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. You really are something, Daniel. I've never seen anyone fight like that." Daniel shook his head, still catching his breath. "I didn't do it for me, I did it for her." He gestured to the Queen, who stood gracefully, radiating calm and authority despite the chaos around her. Queen Solara stepped forward. "You have saved me twice today, human soldier. Your courage is extraordinary." "I do not forget such acts." Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. He had done his duty, but he also knew that the war was far from over. There would be more battles, more dangers, more decisions to make. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of rest. He had protected the Queen. He had shown that humans could face fear and stand firm. And as the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, Daniel Harper realized that his journey was only beginning. The night on Zera 7 was colder than Daniel expected. The twin suns had disappeared below the horizon, leaving only a faint blue glow from the planet's atmosphere. The wind carried the scent of burnt metal and scorched rock from the earlier battle. Daniel Harper stood on the wall of the human relay station, watching the valley below. The creatures had retreated, but he knew it was only temporary. They would return, stronger and more organized. Queen Solara stayed near the command center, her silver-blue skin shimmering faintly in the dim light. She had been quiet since arriving at the station, observing the humans and their technology with careful eyes. Her gaze occasionally met Daniel's, and he noticed a mix of respect and concern. He knew she understood the danger they were in, and he could sense her appreciation for his efforts. Clara Fields approached him, carrying a tray of rations. "You need to eat," she said softly. "You've been moving non-stop since the moment we landed." Daniel shook his head. "I'll eat later. Right now, we need to make sure the Queen is safe. The creatures are still out there. They're not done." Clara sighed but didn't argue. She understood. She had seen him in action, had watched him stand alone while others fled. She had never seen anyone fight with such determination. Even the seasoned soldiers of their unit had panicked, but Daniel had stayed. Suddenly, alarms blared across the station. Red lights flashed and the walls shook from distant impacts. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "They're back," he muttered. The creatures had returned, and this time they were larger in number. Daniel grabbed his rifle and ran to the command center. Soldiers were already preparing the defenses, barricading entrances and activating energy barriers. The Queen raised her hands, her glow intensifying as she prepared to help. Daniel took a deep breath. He could feel the tension in the air, the fear in the soldiers around him. But he did not let it affect him. He moved calmly, checking positions, giving orders, and preparing to fight. The first wave of creatures crashed against the outer barriers. Their claws scraped metal, sparks flying with every impact. Daniel fired, taking down the closest threats. Some soldiers fired with precision, others panicked and missed, but he covered them, directing their movements. One creature managed to break through the side wall. Daniel ran toward it, his rifle steady. The creature lunged at him, but he sidestepped, striking it with the butt of his weapon. It roared and spun around, its eyes glowing with anger. Daniel fired again, hitting it in the chest. It collapsed, giving him a moment to regroup. Queen Solara raised her hands, sending a wave of energy toward the attackers. The blast threw several creatures back, giving the humans a small advantage. Daniel glanced at her, impressed by her control and power. "Keep them back as long as you can," he shouted. "We'll hold the line." The creatures were relentless. They climbed over rocks, leapt from cliffs, and tore through barriers. Daniel realized that brute force alone would not win this battle. They needed strategy, coordination, and courage. He spotted a weak point in the creature's formation. "Clara, with me!" he shouted. Together they ran toward a narrow canyon passage, leading the creatures into a trap. The soldiers followed, using their weapons to channel the attackers into the confined space. Daniel and Clara moved quickly, their training and instincts guiding them. They fired at the creatures' legs, slowing their movements. The narrow canyon made it difficult for the creatures to use their size and strength effectively. Daniel ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a claw that would have torn through his armor. After several tense minutes, the creatures began to hesitate. Their red eyes flickered with confusion. Daniel saw his chance. "Now!" he shouted. The soldiers fired in unison, striking the creatures with precision. Some fell, others retreated, and the rest were pushed back by the Queen's energy waves. For a moment, the valley was silent. Daniel lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. He had led the humans to victory, but he knew it was not over. The creatures would regroup. They were smart, adaptive, and persistent. He turned to the Queen. "Are you okay?" he asked. Queen Solara nodded. "Thanks to you, human soldier. Your courage and skill have saved many lives today." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. He had always believed in protecting others, but hearing it from the Queen was different. It was validation of his purpose, of his willingness to risk everything for someone else. Clara approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You can rest now," she said softly. "The Queen is safe, the station held. We've done everything we can for tonight." Daniel shook his head. "Rest comes later. We need to prepare for tomorrow. They'll return and we need to be ready. This was only the first wave." As he spoke, he noticed movement in the distance. More creatures were emerging from the shadows, larger and more aggressive than before. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He knew this battle was far from over. He ran to the observation deck, analyzing the valley below. The creatures were organizing themselves, forming groups and planning their attacks. Daniel realized that they were intelligent, capable of strategy. This was no longer a simple fight. It was a war of tactics and endurance. He turned to the soldiers. "Listen up. They're coming back stronger than before. We hold the line, we protect the Queen, and we fight together. No one falls behind." The soldiers nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They had seen Daniel in action, had watched him stand when others fled. His courage inspired them. Queen Solara raised her hands again, casting protective energy around the station. Daniel joined her, coordinating with the soldiers to create a defensive formation. Together, human and alien worked in harmony, their combined strength forming an unbreakable line. The creatures attacked again, their numbers overwhelming. Daniel fired relentlessly, his aim precise. He dodged and rolled, striking down any creature that came too close. Clara fought beside him, her energy shield protecting the queen and the soldiers. Hours passed and the battle raged on. Daniel's body ached, his muscles burned, and his vision blurred from exhaustion. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Every moment mattered. Every life depended on his actions. At one point, a massive creature broke through the outer defenses and charged toward the command center. Daniel intercepted it, firing at point-blank range. The creature roared, slamming into him. Daniel fell backward, hitting the ground hard. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself to rise. With a final, powerful shot, he struck the creature in its chest. It fell, thrashing, then lay still. Daniel breathed heavily, looking around at the chaos. The station had held, but barely. Soldiers were injured, barriers were damaged, and the Queen's energy had been stretched to its limit. Queen Solara approached him. "You have done more than any human I have ever seen," she said. "Your bravery is remarkable. You risked your life to protect me and your people. You are truly extraordinary." Daniel shook his head, exhaustion and humility in his eyes. "I did what anyone would do," he said softly. "I protect those who cannot protect themselves." Clara placed a hand on his arm. "Not everyone would stand when others run." "You're different, Daniel. You're stronger than you realize." Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of pride and fatigue. He knew the battle was not over, but for now they had survived. The Queen was safe and the humans had held their ground. As the night deepened, Daniel stood on the observation deck, looking out at the valley. The creatures had retreated, but their presence was still felt. He knew they would return, more determined than ever. He glanced at Queen Solara. Her calm presence was reassuring, but he knew that the challenges ahead would test him in ways he had never imagined. He had proven his courage, but the war was far from over. Daniel Harper clenched his fists, determination burning in his eyes. "I will protect her," he whispered. "No matter what comes." And as the stars sparkled above Zera 7, he prepared for the next wave, ready to face whatever dangers awaited. The morning sun rose over the jagged cliffs of Zera 7, casting long shadows across the valley. The twin suns painted the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. Daniel Harper stood on the observation deck of the relay station, his armor battered and dirty, his body aching from the previous night's battle. He had barely slept, but there was no time for rest. Queen Solara stood near the command center, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. She had not spoken much since arriving at the station, but Daniel could feel her silent vigilance. She was aware of the danger that still surrounded them, and he knew she trusted him to protect her. Clara Fields approached him, carrying fresh supplies. "We've patched the barriers, but they won't hold for long," she said. "They'll come back, stronger this time." Daniel nodded. "I know we need a plan. Last night we held them off, but this is different. They're learning from us. They're adapting." Clara frowned. "Do you really think we can stop them?" Daniel looked out at the valley. The creatures were nowhere in sight, but he could sense them. The wind carried faint sounds of movement, small rustlings that suggested they were gathering. "We don't have to stop them completely," he said. "We just have to survive long enough for the Queen to reach safety and for reinforcements to arrive. That's all that matters." The station's sensors beeped urgently. Daniel turned to the console. "They're approaching," he said. "All units prepare for combat." The creatures emerged from the shadows, larger in number than ever before. Their red eyes glowed with aggression, their claws sharp and ready. Daniel took a deep breath, gripping his rifle tightly. He would not falter. The soldiers formed a line around the Queen, their weapons raised. Daniel moved to the front, leading the charge. The first wave of creatures hit the energy barriers. Sparks flew as claws tore against the walls. The barriers shimmered under the impact, and Daniel knew they would not hold forever. He fired his rifle, hitting the creatures one by one. His aim was precise, each shot slowing their advance. Clara moved beside him, using her energy shield to protect the queen. Together, they created a wall of defense that forced the creatures to hesitate. One massive creature broke through the outer barrier, charging toward the queen. Daniel ran forward, dodging debris and firing at point-blank range. The creature roared, swinging its claws, but Daniel ducked and rolled, striking it with the butt of his rifle. The creature stumbled but kept moving. "Clara, help me push it back," Daniel shouted. Clara raised her hands, sending a wave of energy toward the creature. It screeched, stumbling backward. Daniel fired again, hitting it in the chest. The creature collapsed, and for a moment silence fell over the battlefield. But it was only temporary. More creatures poured from the canyon, their numbers overwhelming. Daniel realized that brute force alone would not win this fight. They needed a strategy. He quickly scanned the terrain. The cliffs around the station formed a natural funnel. If they could lure the creatures into the narrow passages, they could limit their advantage. "All units, fall back to the cliffs," he shouted. "Use the canyon to your advantage." The soldiers obeyed, retreating under Daniel's direction. The queen followed, protected by Clara's energy shield. Daniel stayed behind, covering their movements. He fired relentlessly, keeping the creatures at bay. As he moved, he noticed a group of creatures trying to flank them from the side. Daniel sprinted toward them, firing his rifle. He rolled under a swinging claw, hitting the closest creature. The others hesitated, unsure of their next move. Daniel knew he had to act quickly. He climbed a narrow rock face, using the higher ground to his advantage. From this position, he could fire down on the creatures, controlling their movement. One by one, they fell under his precise aim. The queen's energy blasts combined with Daniel's rifle fire created a deadly combination. The creatures were being forced into the canyon, where their numbers were less effective. Daniel could see the relief in the soldiers' eyes. They were following his lead, fighting with determination and courage. But Daniel was not done. He knew the largest threat was yet to come. From the distance, he spotted a massive creature, far larger than the rest. Its armor was thick, its claws enormous, and its eyes burned brighter than any he had seen. It was the leader. Daniel's heart raced. He had faced many challenges, but this one was different. He could not allow this creature to reach the queen. Not now, not ever. He shouted to the soldiers, "Focus on the canyon, keep the rest at bay. I'll deal with the leader." Clara's eyes widened. "Daniel, be careful, that thing is huge." "I don't have a choice," he said, determination in his voice. "If it reaches her, we're all dead." Daniel ran toward the creature, dodging smaller attackers along the way. The leader roared, swinging its claws. Daniel ducked under a massive strike and fired his rifle at a weak point in its armor. Sparks flew, and the creature staggered, but it quickly regained balance. He grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it at the creature, distracting it long enough to fire again. The creature roared in anger, its eyes blazing. Daniel's muscles burned, his arms ached, but he did not stop. Every second mattered. The queen, sensing the danger, raised her hands. A powerful wave of energy struck the creature, pushing it back. Daniel seized the opportunity, firing at its exposed chest. The creature fell to one knee, struggling to rise. Clara called out, "Daniel, we can finish it together." Daniel nodded. He ran forward, dodging another swipe from the creature's massive claws. Together with Clara and the queen's energy, they struck the final blow. The creature collapsed, its red eyes dimming. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining creatures hesitated, looking at the fallen leader. Then one by one, they began to retreat, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon. Daniel lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. He had done it. The queen was safe, and the creatures had been driven back for now. Queen Solara approached him, her glowing hands now relaxed. "You have proven yourself beyond measure, Daniel Harper," she said. Your courage, your skill, and your willingness to protect others, it is rare among your kind. I am grateful beyond words." Daniel shook his head, exhausted. "I just did what I had to do," he said. "I couldn't let anything happen to you." Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're more than a soldier, Daniel. You're a hero. Today, you saved all of us." Daniel felt a sense of pride, but also a deep weariness. The battle had taken its toll on him, both physically and mentally, but he knew the war was far from over. This victory was temporary. More challenges would come, and he would face them. The Queen looked at him with a mixture of respect and something else he couldn't name. Gratitude, admiration, perhaps a recognition of the bond that had formed between them. Daniel didn't have time to dwell on it. There were still preparations to make, defenses to strengthen, and strategies to plan. As the suns rose higher in the sky, Daniel took a moment to survey the valley. The creatures were gone, but the landscape bore the marks of the battle: scorched rocks, shattered cliffs, and the remnants of what had once been a quiet canyon. He turned to the Queen. "We'll get you to safety," he said. "I promise. No matter what comes next, I'll protect you." Queen Solara nodded, her expression calm but resolute. "I trust you, Daniel Harper, and I know that as long as you stand with us, we have hope." Daniel looked at Clara and the soldiers around him. They were tired, but their determination was unwavering. Together, they had faced impossible odds and survived. Together, they could face whatever challenges awaited them. And as the twin suns rose fully over Zera 7, Daniel Harper knew one thing for certain. He would fight, he would endure, and he would protect the Queen with every ounce of strength he had. Because that was what it meant to be human. And for the first time that morning, Daniel allowed himself a small smile. The battle was not over, but he had proven something important. Humans could stand when others fled. Humans could face fear and overcome it. Humans could protect what mattered most, even against impossible odds. And he would continue to do so, no matter the cost. The valley of Zera 7 lay quiet for a brief moment, almost as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Daniel Harper stood on the observation deck of the human relay station, surveying the area. The creatures had retreated after the last battle, but Daniel knew better than to trust the calm. They were intelligent, persistent, and organized. They would return, and this time they would come with everything they had. Queen Solara was nearby, her glowing presence serene yet alert. She had grown to trust Daniel completely. His courage, skill, and unwavering determination had earned her respect, and more than that, a bond that neither of them could deny. Clara Fields moved among the soldiers, helping with repairs and organizing the defenses. Daniel watched her for a moment, grateful for her support. Without her, the Queen would not have survived the first attack. "Daniel," the Queen said softly, drawing his attention, "I have received a message from my people. They are sending reinforcements, but it will take time. Until then, you must help me hold this station." Daniel nodded. "We'll hold it. I won't let anything happen to you." Clara approached him. "We've fortified the barriers as much as possible. There's still the main canyon entrance. They'll try to break through there first." Daniel studied the map of the valley. The canyon entrance was narrow, perfect for a trap. "Good," he said. "We'll make them pay for every step they take. We don't have to stop them completely, but we make them suffer every moment." As the suns climbed higher, the ground trembled slightly. Daniel's heart raced. The creatures were coming, their approach deliberate and loud. The air filled with the low growls and screeches that had haunted him for days. He tightened his grip on his rifle. "They're here," he muttered. The first wave hit the barriers. Energy sparks flew as the creatures tore at the metal and rock. Daniel fired with precision, his aim exact, taking down the largest threats first. Clara's energy shield protected the Queen and the soldiers, holding back creatures that managed to get close. Daniel moved along the walls of the station, directing soldiers, firing when necessary, and ensuring that no weak point went undefended. He was everywhere at once, a figure of calm determination in the chaos. Suddenly, a massive creature broke through the main canyon entrance. It roared, shaking the ground, its claws striking the reinforced barriers. Daniel ran forward, firing rapidly. The creature's thick armor made it difficult to harm, but Daniel knew he could not hesitate. "Clara, Queen, stay behind me," he shouted. The Queen raised her hands, sending a wave of energy to push the creature back. Daniel fired again, hitting the joints of its armor. Sparks flew, and the creature staggered. He grabbed a heavy piece of debris and hurled it at the creature's head. It roared in anger, swiping at him, but Daniel rolled aside, narrowly avoiding death. More creatures followed, smaller but equally dangerous. Daniel realized they were coordinated. The leader had returned, larger and more aggressive than before, commanding the others. He shouted to the soldiers, "Fall back to the narrow canyon. Channel them, don't let them spread." The soldiers obeyed, retreating in formation. Daniel stayed behind, covering their movement. His body ached, but he could not stop. Every second mattered. Every life depended on his actions. Queen Solara joined him briefly, her energy forming a protective shield around him. "You cannot do this alone, Daniel," she said. "I never intended to," he replied. "I have all of you with me, but I'll face the leader myself if I have to." The massive creature lunged at him. Daniel dodged and fired at the exposed joints of its armor. The creature staggered, then turned its attention on the Queen. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He could not allow it to reach her. He charged forward, firing relentlessly. The creature swung its claws, but Daniel dodged with skill and precision. He grabbed a large rock from the ground and struck it with all his strength. The creature roared, blinded for a moment, giving Daniel the chance to climb onto its back. Clara and the Queen fired together, their combined energy pushing the creature into a momentary weakness. Daniel held on tightly, striking at the creature's head with a piece of metal, smashing through its armored plates. The creature shrieked in pain, thrashing wildly. The soldiers joined the attack, firing at the creature's exposed joints. Sparks and smoke filled the air. Daniel gritted his teeth and focused, striking again and again. Finally, with a powerful energy blast from the Queen and a well-aimed shot from Daniel's rifle, the creature collapsed, its massive body shaking the ground as it fell. The other creatures hesitated, sensing the loss of their leader. Daniel stood on the fallen creature, breathing heavily, his rifle still raised. "This ends now," he shouted. The remaining creatures turned and fled, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon. Silence fell over the valley. Daniel lowered his weapon, exhaustion washing over him. He had done it. He had protected the Queen, the soldiers, and the station. Queen Solara approached him, her glow bright and steady. "You have saved us all, Daniel Harper. Your courage is unmatched. You risked your life without hesitation, and you have proven that humans are capable of great valor." Daniel shook his head, humbled. "I just did what anyone should do. I protected those who needed it, that's all." Clara came up beside him, smiling tiredly. "You're more than that, Daniel. You're a hero. Everyone here knows it. The Queen knows it, and I know it too." Daniel looked at the Queen. Her eyes reflected gratitude and admiration. "I thank you, Daniel," she said softly, "not just for today, but for everything. You have proven that courage, loyalty, and the willingness to stand when others flee, those qualities define the best of your kind." Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of pride and relief. The battle was over, at least for now. The Queen was safe, the soldiers were alive, and the station had held. He had risked everything, and it had been worth it. The twin suns shone brightly over Zera 7, casting long shadows over the valley. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past days lift slightly. The war was not over, he knew that, but today they had won a great victory. Queen Solara turned to face him fully. "Daniel Harper, I have a request," she said. "Will you continue to stand by my side? Will you fight with me, not just as a soldier, but as a protector of my people?" Daniel looked at her, his chest rising and falling with his deep breaths. "I will," he said firmly. "I will protect you and your people as long as I live. That is my promise." The queen's glow brightened, a sign of her approval. Clara and the soldiers watched with quiet admiration. Daniel had not only saved the queen, but had inspired all of them to fight with courage and determination. As the day drew on, reinforcements from the queen's people began to arrive. They were strong, disciplined, and well-armed. With their arrival, the station was secured. Daniel finally allowed himself a moment to rest, sitting on the edge of the observation deck. His armor was battered, his body sore, but his spirit was unbroken. Clara handed him a small ration pack. "Eat something," she said. "You've earned it." Daniel took it with a grateful nod, feeling the weight of exhaustion and relief. He looked out over the valley, thinking of the battles they had fought and the victories they had achieved. He knew more challenges would come, but for now they had survived. They had protected what mattered most. Queen Solara approached him again, standing silently beside him. Daniel looked at her and saw not just a queen, but someone who trusted him completely. He realized that their bond had grown beyond mere duty. It was respect, understanding, and a shared commitment to protect life, no matter the cost. "I knew humans were brave," the queen said softly, "but I never imagined one could stand as you have, Daniel. You are extraordinary." Daniel shook his head, smiling faintly. "I just did what I had to do, that's all." The queen nodded, but Daniel could see the truth in her eyes. She knew it was more than that. It was courage. It was humanity. It was the strength to stand alone when everyone else fled. As the sun set over Zera 7, Daniel Harper stood with the queen and the soldiers, ready to face whatever came next. He had proven that humans could rise above fear, that they could protect others even against impossible odds. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them with the same determination, the same courage, and the same heart. Because that was what it meant to be human, and for the first time in days, Daniel allowed himself to smile fully. They had survived, they had fought, and together, human and alien, they had won.